Okay, Tov. So yesterday we explained that the ideal age of marriage for a man is between the ages of 18 and 20. That's what's in the Gemara, the Rambam, and the Shulchan Aruch. However, the Gemara itself recognizes that there can be situations and extenuating circumstances where a person is unable to prepare themselves adequately to be able to live with a woman and to build a family at the age of 18 to 20. And so the Gemara says that when a person is fully engaged in Torah study and he's dedicated towards that, needs more time to be able to develop themselves intellectually, a person may postpone their marriage. Now, of course, this isn't an indefinite postponing, but for a certain time. So we find in the Gemara that it's clear that a person is allowed to postpone the marriage at least for Torah purposes. And so it's clear if a person is fully engaged in Torah study, and this is what they're doing in developing themselves, then one would be allowed to delay marriage. However, the question is, for the vast majority of people who are not fully dedicated to Torah study, what's the appropriate age to get married today? Are we really arguing that today a person, according to halakha, and it's Hashem's will that a person gets married between the ages of 18 and 20, boys nowadays? Is that really what we're saying? So there's different approaches here, but I want to show you the approach of Rebbe Lezer Melamed, which I think is very reasonable and it makes the most sense. We have here conflicting principles. On the one hand, we know and we've explained there is an ideal principle. Marriage and perur vu, having children, is a great mitzvah. We also know that perur vu is different to other mitzvot in that it hasn't got a specific time frame. This is why already the Hachamim said to get married at 18, despite the fact that normally mitzvot apply at 13, but they postponed it to 18 because that's when the time when they felt it was most appropriate. So we already see that perur vu, because it hasn't got a fixed time, can be postponed. The third principle we see from the Gemara, which we've explained, is that one needs to prepare responsibly. And so if one is preparing themselves with Torah and other such things, they're allowed to postpone. And so the combination of this seems to be that one needs to get married. There's a great mitzvah to get married. And one is allowed to postpone when one is preparing responsibly in order to be able to get married in the best possible way. Now, the Gemara itself, which talks about getting married by 20, does offer an opinion later on, the next page, that perhaps even till 24 it's appropriate to get married. And based on this, the Hida writes that even those who have an excuse not to get married at the age of 20, they should try to get married by the age of 24. So we're already seeing that the age of 24, in extenuating circumstances, can replace the age of 20. Now we also know the Rambam tells us, this is based on the Gemara, but the Rambam develops this and puts it beautifully. He says, Derech Ba'alei De'ah, wise people, people who live correctly, and he learns this from the Torah. The correct practice is, first you get a job, then you build a house. Nowadays that would mean to have the appropriate way to be able to have a house, and then get married. So the correct way says you have a job and then a house and then you get married. He says derech ba'alei tipshim, the way of the fools is they get married first and then they have to end up trying to find a house and relying on charity to be, because they're unable to get a job because they're already married and have children, etc. So you see, Rambam and the Gemara also understands this as well. Make it clear that the correct procedure is for a person to be suitably prepared financially and then to get married. And of course, nowadays, how can we say that a person is prepared financially to get married at the age of 20? And so it's very hard to give a definitive age. I do not think that there is the same insistence as there was in the times of Hachamim nowadays to get married at 20, because simply if a person was to get married by then, he wouldn't be able to prepare responsibly to be able to have a wife and to be able to have children. At the same time, if we're going to say that a person has to wait nowadays until they have a job and until they've bought a house, in many places across the world, you're going to have to wait till 30, 35, 40. You may end up waiting. These things are not easy. And so Rav Melamed suggests, based on all of this, that the appropriate age nowadays to get married is by the age of 24. By then, a person hopefully has been able to get a degree or have some kind of understanding of how they're going to be making a parnasah for the rest of their life and have a way to be able to look after their wife and their children. Of course, if a person is able, before they're at age, to be secure financially and to have be responsible in their Torah and their finances, then of course, even before the age of 24. But really, nowadays, we should be bringing up our boys to be able to have a plan to be able to get married by the age of 24. Yes, sometimes that may be pushed a bit because a person is still developing themselves financially, Torah wise. But to say that nowadays it doesn't apply anymore and one can postpone until 30, 35, I don't think is correct. I think there's some leeway here. And the key idea here is, can a person utilize their time and a few extra years to be able to prepare themselves adequately? And so, in conclusion, what we're saying is there's a great mitzvah peruvu. There is a recognition that it can be postponed, and based on everything nowadays, perhaps it could be postponed till 24, or perhaps even later in extreme circumstances. But really, of course, the earlier a person gets married when they are responsibly able to do so, that is the best thing to do. Tomorrow, please God, will talk about the correct age of marriage for women nowadays. This was all for men.